Welcome to Cosmic Disclosure. I'm your host, David Wilcock, and I'm here with Corey Good, the Insider's Insider, a man whose experiences have truly revolutionized what we know about the UFO phenomenon as a whole, and particularly what we know about a group within the military-industrial complex that has colonized space and has extensively built out a vast amount of habitation in our solar system for the purposes of industrial growth and trade with a wide variety of extraterrestrial civilizations. So, Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We've been talking in previous episodes about this very bizarre chain of events that starts to happen when you get pulled back into the space program after years of absence. We've talked about the enigmatic figure Lieutenant Colonel Gonzalez, not his real name. And it appeared that up until this outer barrier showed up, that the cabal didn't really think they were going to be stopped. Would you agree with that?
They did not feel that anything could stop them. Their allies in the realm of the ETs and the etheric world were too strong. Their gods were at their back, and we were just useless eaters that were throwaways, and there was no stopping them.
Can you tell us what you know about the awakening of the stasis being or beings that seems to have taken place? Why was the cabal interested in these stasis beings, and what happened when it woke up?
Just like when the spheres started to appear in the solar system, they thought they were the Sumerian gods returning.
They thought the stasis beings were?
The sphere beings.
Oh, yeah.
They also thought that the stasis beings they had been visiting and worshiping, and thought that they were also their gods. And as they started to revive, they were disappointed once again. These beings were waking up and were confused and upset, and from what I'm told, were then sent off with another group that may or may not be ETs to rejoin their people, which I don't know if this is accurate information or not coming from this source.
So, if this source is correct, then this was a very major disappointment to the cabal.
One of many.
They thought one of their gods was going to wake up and basically save their butts from whatever was happening.
Right.
And they did not get what they wanted at all.
Right. And this once more demoralized the cabal, and one of the strongest of the secret space programs, the ICC, after the recent meeting with the Draco White Royals, where the Draco White Royals had offered up all of their human followers in exchange for them to be allowed to leave the solar system outside the outer barrier. The ICC was starting to capitulate on a few things. And after a lot of information was released about the Mars slave colonies, that was a major PR headache for the cabal and the ICC.
This sounds like the cabal was expecting that they were going to tell the truth at some point, or is it more that they now have to tell the truth and they're concerned about how it's presented?
Well, at this point, they already know that a large percent of very high-ranking cabal, secret Earth government, and secret Earth government syndicate members had defected with a large of information similar to what Snowden had, and they were joining the alliance, the Secret Space Program Alliance, and agreeing at some point to testify against them. And pretty much they were seeing that and hearing that there was going to be a giant data dump in the future of all of this information about their crimes against humanity. And a strange offer came up from the ICC through a negotiation that they wanted to prove that things were not so bad on Mars as had been claimed through recent reports that I had released, and others were beginning to talk about on the internet about the slave colonies on Mars, that these people were there on their own free will, that they were happy, and that they were doing important work.
So in a sense, the ICC version of the cabal is now anticipating multiple whistleblowers that have very high-level knowledge that are going to come forward and incriminate them greatly. And because of the importance that they see you as having, they wanted you to be given a show that would try to ameliorate your concerns about it and make everybody seem like they're all holding hands and singing Kumbaya on Mars.
It wasn't all about me. It was more of a show for the Secret Space Program Alliance Council's representatives, being Gonzalez and myself.
I guess one of the problems that some people are going to have with this is if this space program's mission is so important with the Alliance, why would they throw you out here like a canary in the coal mine? Why wouldn't they deploy 5 different people that all know what you know at once, for example?
I was told, and I've expected before now, more to pop up. And I'm challenging you now out there, those who are out there, start coming forward. There are plenty of people out there that know a lot of what I've been speaking about. And as I've said in the past, I've watched many in the past that have talked to you even walk right up to the line, stop, and about face, and then disappear out of public. And there are a lot of people that know this information or compartmentalized pieces of this information that can come forward, and I believe will be coming forward with this similar information.
Yeah, and we actually, the first guest that we wanted to have on the show Disclosure was Henry Deacon, and I had personally paid for his ticket to fly out here, and then right before he was going to fly out here, he got very severely threatened.
Yes.
And that torched the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So part of perhaps why more people haven't come forward is just the severity of force and coercion that is used to try to stop this from getting out. Because I've spoken to several other people that know a lot of the same things that you know, and none of them wanted to come forward.
It's time.
So the ICC is not just presenting this for you and your readers on the internet. They're anticipating that you're like the first pebble of an avalanche that's going to hit them, and they want to do this show for the Alliance as a whole.
Right. And this was in anticipation also of these data dumps, and they're wanting to start putting a spin on the situation.
And just to recap that, in case somebody missed that episode, you said the NSA was hacking all the space program stuff. They were...
Well, what Snowden had gotten his hands on, the NSA had made one of the cardinal mistakes of putting all their eggs in one basket. And they were overconfident, and they had all types of information they were using to blackmail politicians and people all over the world, and they had secret space program information, all highly encrypted. Snowden got a hold of that and booked it out of the U.S., and the information he had been sending over satellites for some time. He didn't just have a small hard drive in his back pocket when he fled. It was tons, terabytes and terabytes of info.
All of the same thing.
All of that has now been fully decrypted very recently.
As in June 2015, thereabouts?
Yeah, just very recently. So all of that is, they've they're still going through it. It's just recently been decrypted. And then we have all this tons and tons more other information in these recent hacks that people have heard a little bit about. And so this is the information that the ICC is worried about. And this gets us to why they offered to have a sort of like a NATO type inspection of one of their colonies of our choice on Mars to inspect the living conditions of the colonists.
How many colonies on Mars are you aware of there being?
There are dozens of colonies, facilities, and industrial plants that build technologies. And a lot of these colonies are in the outskirts of these plants, and the people are shuttled to them to work. And
well, I guess it would make sense if you have a whole planet that there would be dozens of facilities on the planet.
Right. And it was one of these types of facilities that we were taken to do an inspection of.
So let's talk through the story, starting with you're at home. Were you given a call by Gonzalez or something to tell you when this was going to happen?
Yeah, I was warned that it was going to happen. I didn't anticipate the timing right. I walked into my living room. I hadn't gotten dressed yet, and the blue little orb friend of mine flew in through my sliding glass door, patio door, zipped right through the glass, and started zipping around. And
how big was it at this point?
It's about this size.
And does it look like a golf ball, like a round ball kind of thing? Okay.
And I knew I wasn't going to be able to walk back into my bedroom, get ready and all that, so I stand there, I put my hands like this, and I mentally let it know I'm ready. And it zips right about 18 inches from my chest, expands. I am now floating in the middle of it, and then it's like a kind of a weird time-space blur as it takes off.
And what's the sense of duration when that happens? How long are you in it for?
Moments.
It's very rapid.
Very rapid.
You don't experience a sense of movement or stars?
No, there's a sense of movement in the beginning, but then all of a sudden you're at your location. And there is a room that I've become very familiar with at the LOC. It's a very large conference room. Since then, it's been used so often for this type of coming and going of not only myself, but a lot of the civilians that have been brought up to do whatever they're doing there. But that's a different subject.
Did the space program ever tell you if they have a way of locking the cabal out of that area so that it can't be spied upon? Why would this area be secure?
No, this is a facility that has to be, it is a shared facility that sometimes we don't have access to because the cabal groups are using it. But the main table has been scooted against the wall for months now to give a larger area of the conference room open.
Just so more people can come in?
Right, because there's been a large number of people in there at one time, like 70 or more people. And so I appear there. Shortly after I appear, one of the security personnel comes in, and I tell them I need something to wear. He asks me, what size am I? And he looks me up and down, and he leaves, comes back, brings back usually when I'm not prepared, I'm given used type clothing. And this was very crisp.
Has that at least been laundered?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very crisp jumpsuit and a brand new pair of boots, almost exactly like these, that have the zipper on the side for going through security points where you can pop them off real quick. and then zip them back on, with laces in the front that were brand new, had never been worn.
Okay.
But I was just standing there in shorts, t-shirt, and wearing flip-flops. So I was totally unprepared.
So you get dressed.
So after I had gotten dressed, I was waiting for a little while, and security personnel came and escorted me to one of the launch bays, or the areas where they keep the shuttlecraft. And as I walked out, I saw like a semicircle, a group of people standing, talking, and Gonzalez saw me coming and kind of acknowledged me. And I saw the ICC representative standing there, and there were a bunch of the Secret Space Program councilmen standing there, basically, wishing a good mission, hoping all of this was a success.
So the
political kind of talk.
The ICC chairman, is that an extraterrestrial? Is that a reptilian or something?
No, this was a human being. He was an ICC councilman, like a high up.
So what did he look like? Could you describe him?
Yeah, he had gray hair, grayish, white hair. Was not a real stocky guy. Was wearing one of those suits that I've described.
Like the Nehru jacket?
Nehru, like India kind of. I don't know why those are so popular, but that seems to have become the thing to wear for the people in power. So we get on to what I've described. They come in different sizes, between 40 and 60 feet long shuttle craft, and they're modular on the inside. I've seen them changed out for all different types of uses, including troop transport, medical. This one was set up, obviously, for VIP situation. It had enough seats for all of us, and once we sat in the seats, and I have a very long report online about this. I'm abbreviating it for the show. Gonzalez was doing most of the talking. He is an impeccable politician, and he has all these skills of dealing with these types of people. I had been out of the loop. I was really listening to see if I was going to get more information than I'd been given. Before I knew it, we had stopped outside of, pretty far outside of the Mars orbit. We were stopped, and when we did, a giant, almost, I would estimate about 70-inch diagonally panel came down. It was one of the larger versions of like the smart glass pads, and a three-dimensional image of Mars appeared, and all these different icons started appearing to where there were these Mars bases. And
how many icons were there?
I can't remember now. There were quite a few, at least a dozen.
Okay.
There were a large number, and we were only seeing one side of Mars at this point.
Were they in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere?
These were all up in the northern hemisphere.
Oh.
But this ICC guy started pointing to the different ones, saying, making recommendations of ones we should visit. And this time, Gonzalez said, well, wait a second. And he didn't touch anything. I guess he had some sort of mental component way of activating this new icon down in the southern hemisphere. And when he did, the ICC representative immediately kind of straightened up and was disturbed. And Gonzalez said, we've chosen this facility. And the ICC representative was obviously a complete politician. He very quickly on his feet said, this is not a working facility. It doesn't have a colony. It's a old, I think he was saying it was like an automated facility. It's not something you'd be interested in, playing it down. And Gonzalez immediately said, well, one of our recent defectors lived on this colony, and we have very fresh and detailed intelligence about this facility. This is the one we want to visit. And
I bet that's going to throw him into a panic.
he was concerned. The ICC representative was concerned. And he excused himself to go back into one of the modular rooms, and apparently he had some sort of communication device or way to communicate. And he said he had to get it cleared. And he appeared a few minutes later and said that that was going to be approved, but it was going to take about an hour to have everything cleared and the airspace cleared and have it all worked out. Obviously time for them to clean up the base and make arrangements. So approximately 50 minutes later, one of the crew said, we're cleared for landing, and off we go. As we entered the atmosphere, we saw outside the clear panels pink and lavender, purple discharges around the shielding, and we flew real quickly towards the ground, which was exhilarating, and then cut real hard and started flying along the surface into what looked like used to be part of a river water feature. And there was a sort of a cliff wall, kind of like a cliff wall, and out of it came a cylinder, rose up, that was
metallic?
Yes, that was basically air traffic control. And then an opening opened up, and that wasn't visible before, in the side of the canyon type wall. We slowed down, flew inside. As we flew inside, there were bays on each side, and on each side there were two craft on either side of a catwalk that I hadn't seen before, that were somewhat teardrop shaped and chrome colored. And I believe it was the third bay on the right, we were apparently cleared to land, and there was one of the teardrop shaped vessels, and then a kind of a large circular area for us to land, which our craft barely fit on. And we landed. The ICC representative got out of our craft and jogged, half running, half walking, to the security people that met him, went and to the security checkpoint, and then came back running, doing this, that everything was okay. And Gonzalez and I had two security personnel that were IEs assigned to each of us that were allowed to carry firearms. We disembarked. We headed to the checkpoint. The security at the station told our security, no weapons past this point. There was an exchange between Gonzalez and the ICC representative that, this was supposed to be already a part of the deal. The ICC representative went and talked to what was the leader of the facility. The leader of the facility scowled and did this to motion us through, and we entered into the base, and there was no one present. And he said that the main hall was being prepared for the presentation, and the rest of the ICC personnel were on their way. They'd been informed of the location, and that we were going to be sent first to the industrial complex to see where a certain component was produced. And then they put us on a train, a small train that was very narrow and was two people across, to where we sat across from each other just like this. And the way we entered in, there were quite a few of the colony's security personnel that were accompanying us. And I had one of my security on each side of me, and across from me were 5 of the colony's security. And as we were heading down very quickly, it was about 8 kilometers, I think I heard them say, to the industrial complex, I was asked where I was from, and I made the mistake of saying Texas. Well, I left out before we were told that as we had landed, before we had entered into the checkpoint, the ICC representative told us, listen, this particular base was a part of a social experiment that's very important to humanity. Please don't contaminate it. They were told that Earth was uninhabitable from some sort of catastrophe or something, and that the only human beings that survived were those on Mars and in the space program. So I had pretty much messed up. And
Wow.
Because I was recently sunburned and I had put on aloe and all kinds of stuff. I reeked of Earth, I was told.
Do they all use similar hygiene products?
They used all the exact same hygiene products. Gonzalez told me later on, my deodorant, the lotions I used, the hair gel, everything, I totally smelled alien.
So what happened on this guy's face when you say Texas and he thinks that the Earth has been destroyed?
Well, the few in front of me immediately were like, and they looked at each other and they immediately started talking amongst themselves. And then my security guy and the other security guy next to him started talking, and next thing I know, I see Gonzalez's head poke out and his head crane over and look in my direction, and I didn't even look at him. I just looked past the security guys and watched the blurry wall going by out the window until we stopped. And then we got out to begin the tour of the facility.
What did Gonzalez, when he looked at you, what was the...
I didn't look at him. But he approached me very quickly afterwards, and he said that he was thinking, how he could salvage the situation. He was going to try to think of Texas being a secret facility or a secret vessel or something like that to try to save the situation.
Do you think they were shown some sort of fake Hollywood-style movie?
Who knows?
Okay.
But what I do know
they believed it absolutely.
Yes. What I do know is that many of these people, especially during the brain drain era and a little after, were being brought in, coerced to join these Mars colonies, being told that the Earth was about to go through a catastrophe, that they were the best of the best, they were special, and they were a part of a continuity of preservation of the human species program to basically colonize Mars and eventually terraform Mars and restart the human race.
People who are millennials and have grown up buried in texting and smartphones may not realize how much of a threat people from yours and my generation and then our parents' generation really believed there was going to be a nuclear war. I mean, it was a very frightening, scary thing.
Oh, yeah. I remember we both were at the age to where duck and cover, get under your desk.
As if that's going to do anything.
Right.
So do you think that they may have been told that there had been a nuclear war since there was so much fear that it was going to happen?
I don't know what they were told. If it was a solar event, a war, or a supervolcano, who knows?
But what a great way to keep people from wanting to escape. Because
Right.
that's their home. They got nowhere else to go.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
Did these folks in this particular colony or these other colonies have contact with different extraterrestrial races, or were they predominantly by themselves as humans from Earth?
some of them definitely worked with different ET races and solved different ET races.
Okay.
A lot of these bases were doing commerce with ET races, so I'm assuming so, but I'm not positive.
I know that you didn't live there, but I'm curious if people had, for example, a sub-shuttle system similar to what they have on Earth so they could travel throughout all these different bases and colonies. Was there like an internet on Mars that they could all access? Did they have the ability to talk to people in different facilities?
No, I didn't explain the train system very well. It was almost like vitrified rock, and it was rippled like glass.
That is exactly what I've heard from at least two other insiders.
Okay. And
They have these boring machines that use some kind of nuclear energy, and they drive forward and they melt the rock, but then they have to stop and create a little ring, because if you just go straight through, then it'll crack and dirt falls in. They stop it periodically, make these little rings that reinforce the strength of the tunnel.
it was like rippled.
There you go. Okay,
And
perfect.
there were sections where we went as we were going along. There were cross tunnels, and they had connections to other facilities to where they would bring in parts, and so they were connected to other facilities to where they could bring in parts or whatever else they needed.
Do they have any contact with each other on the planet?
They have limited contact with each other, it appears.
Only high-ranking people, not the rank-and-file staff?
It's, I would say, need to know kind of situation.
So they're living a very isolated life. It's not like they have a big social circle. Or
Very regimented life.
So what happens next?
So we're starting to begin the tour. There was this one colonist that was there that was showing a completed curved component that was a neurological optical interface that was real popular, used to be used in different craft. And
What would that actually do? It's optical and neurological?
yeah,
Does it track the movement of your eye or something?
well, no. If it's through other technology, you neurologically interface it, and it interfaces other technology and gives some sort of optical display or something. We were really just starting to get. We're really about to get started. The machinery that the robotic automated machinery that builds it. They were talking about the different shapes. Some are curved, some are straight.
Is this like a helmet that you wear?
No, it's like something that goes into a vessel.
Oh,
And we were just starting this when, and the train had left after we had gotten out. And
this is the industrial part of the tour they said you were going to get.
right.
Were there a lot of people around?
No, at this time there was just this one colonist that was apparently like a foreman kind of a guy that was there to give us a talk.
Okay.
And the ICC guy, representative, kept touching his ear, and was scowling, looked concerned, and was kind of standing back.
Oh, you're saying it's like an earpiece.
Right.
Not that he was trying to non-verbally signal to the colonist guy.
Like an earwig is kind of, they put them in your ear,
Right.
and you can hear and you can talk, but it's not easy to see.
Okay, so he's got his own little earwig.
Right. And the facility security team was more and more looking at us, talking amongst themselves. It was obvious that they were chattering amongst themselves.
Because of the Texas thing.
Because of the Texas comment. And
you smell funny, look funny.
And I had a sunburn. I was peeling. Even my scalp was peeling. I just had a haircut. I'd been in the sun. And I had put aloe vera all over myself to, And another train arrived. And a whole, like double the size, a huge amount of security came out. And came and disarmed all of their own security team that had accompanied us. And the ICC representative came and told us that we needed to be very careful what we talked about and to remember the agreement.
Were they worried that the guy that you said Texas to was going to frag and shoot you? Is that why him and his team were disarmed? Because they were worried about some sort of psychological break?
Well, the way they were putting it across to us was that we had contaminated their social experiment. And then half of the new security group escorted the old security facility group into the train and left. And shortly later, the train came back. We got in it and headed back because they said that the main hall had been set up and that the ICC representatives had arrived and were ready for the presentation. So we headed back, and when we arrived back this time, there were people everywhere, where before it was just noticeably empty. And in these places, you use every square foot of space. So to have a huge area like that with no one around was unusual. Well, all of a sudden now there are all these colonists, and they were obviously wearing their Sunday's best. Some of them wearing all different types of one pieces. Some of them wearing khakis and blues and all different colors. Some of them actually wearing two-piece types of clothing. And they were all doing their work, but they were all trying to make eye contact with us. It was kind of obvious that they had been told that a part of the deal was that we were going to be allowed to bring one family back with us to question about the conditions of the facility. So they were kind of just like hopefully like trying to make eye contact with us.
Sort of like going into a dog and cat shelter.
Right.
Wow.
So
so sad.
There were two different parts. We got to do a tour of where the people lived and see their small quarters where the people were smiling and looking all happy. And
could you describe one of these quarters just briefly for us? Like, do they have a place where they cook? Do they have a bathroom? Do they have different bedrooms?
They were like gel cells.
Really?
Yeah. They had into the walls. They had beds, and they did not prepare their food there. They all went to one central location to eat. And they went to one central location to go to the bathroom and to bathe and all that, or shared locations for groups.
Did they have a toilet in the room even?
No.
Wow.
It was.
But there's no bars on the door. It's
no.
like they can come and go if they want to.
Right. But I'm sure.
How big was the hallway?
The hallway was fairly wide. I mean, it was big enough for probably 6 people side by side.
But is it just like rooms like this all the way down?
It was just rooms like this, rooms like that all around.
No windows or anything?
No windows.
Did they have light like floor lamps or ceiling mounted light, or how did it light?
There's a type of sonic lighting that they have.
Sonic lighting?
Yeah, it's pretty common. It's sound waves that produce light.
Where are they?
On the ceiling.
Is it one area of the ceiling, or like the whole ceiling just glows?
The panels of the ceiling, the whole ceiling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so Gonzalez made a mental note of the, I guess, the habitation number or address of one of the places, unbeknownst to me. We also went to what Gonzalez referred to as a dog and pony show that the ICC put on. What they were calling the main hall, or this gathering place, looked very much like a place where people were brought in and fed propaganda.
Did you get an intuitive feeling of that?
Yes. It had been set up with chairs around, and there was another one of those very large smart glass type of screens.
So it's like an auditorium where a bunch of people could be.
It was a very large auditorium.
Did they have something like TV in their houses? Was there anything they could watch? Really?
Not that I saw, not unless it's retractable.
Okay.
We go in, some introductions are made, we sit down, and they give a dog and pony show. They start to show us all these different technologies that they barter and trade and sell basically to ETs.
Is the ICC representative giving you the presentation at this point, or does he have colleagues that are also working with him?
Different colleagues, yeah, they're giving different guys. They're giving presentations. They're very proud of what they're presenting. There were different craft, different components of craft, different just small. They were presenting just a whole lot of different technologies, from the micro to the full product.
Was there anything that really jumped out that surprised you that you didn't know existed, or that was really kind of cool, unusual, unexpected?
Well, the fact that not really, other than the fact that there were actual vessels that we were engineering and building that advanced extraterrestrial groups were interested in procuring from us. I mean, we'd come this far in producing advanced technology that other groups wanted it. One of the things that jumped out at me the most was the fact that one of the ICC representatives announced that we were doing trade on a regular basis with nearly 900 ET races. And
that's astonishing.
And that was on a regular basis, and that we were occasionally doing trade with far more.
Far more as in thousands?
Right.
Did they give any sense of how much of the galaxy this covers? Is it just a small area?
No. I'm not exactly sure where all these groups come from, but considering that just outside of our solar system is a major hub as far as a portal system that travels through the cosmic web of portal systems. This is like an oasis stopover. We see a lot of traffic through the area. Most groups don't stop by our solar system because it's seen as very messy. Well, with the slavery going on and all that, most of them don't want to deal with us. They stay outside of our solar system, they do their calculations, and they go. But the ones that are amoral or don't have a problem with it come and do trade with the ICC.
By the time you saw this dog and pony show, had you already been told that these technologies were all going to be handed to humanity after this big disclosure takes place?
Right. We had already been told that the Secret Space Program Alliance was told to stop any attacks, no longer attack the ICC infrastructure, to stop the violence. They were already having problems swallowing the be more loving, be more forgiving, raise your consciousness, and all of this stuff to them was just, totally foreign information. But they were told to stop all the violence, and they did. Especially after they found out that all of this infrastructure, after the great disclosure events and people had dealt with certain things on Earth, all of this infrastructure was going to be handed over to humanity to be the foundation of a Star Trek type civilization.
Which sounds exactly like what so many ancient cultures and modern channeling traditions all say is this big epic golden age that we move into.
Right.
So this is a very interesting practical realization of that.
Right. And the Sphere Being Alliance was saying, quit wrecking things, quit destroying all the infrastructure. You're tearing up stuff that after all of these changes happen are going to be handed over to the people.
Wow. Was it a surprise to Gonzalez or others that were part of his detachment that there were 900 groups that were in, as you said, constant trade with the ICC, or did they already all know that?
I seem to be the one that was the most surprised. I usually seem to be the one that's most in the dark about everything in every situation. I do not get all of the intelligence that all of the SSP Alliance members get.
So in the time that we have remaining, there was obviously some very unpleasant stuff that happens to you after this. So how do we get from you being in this room to where all that starts to take place?
Okay, after this, to abbreviate it, after this point, we now are allowed to choose a family to go with us. Gonzalez gives the address on the wall of the family that he had chosen. And the intuitive empaths earlier had stated something didn't feel right when we were in the train coming back. And I felt something was off, but I'm not as in tune as I used to be. Then once the family was had been escorted onto our vessel, once we had seen the family, the intuitive empaths were whispering to Gonzalez, and he was like, And we got onto the vessel, the door closed, and he said, "You're safe, everything's going to be okay, you can tell us, we know that there's a member of your family missing." And it was a husband, a wife, and a son and a daughter. And the father was like, "How could you possibly know that?" And he said, these gentlemen have abilities, and just tell us what's going on, and we'll straighten it out. And then the family clammed up. And Gonzalez got, in his normal way, he got very ticked off, and him and his two security personnel left the craft.
So they must have told the family, you tell them that this is a wonderful place to live and everything's happy, or else your kid gets it.
And that you want to come back. Because
Right.
part of the deal was we were able to offer them a place,
Sanctuary.
yeah.
Okay.
So Gonzalez left, and long story short, next thing I know, the crew comes out of the crew compartment at the front saying, "We have security personnel coming in fast, weapons at the ready, what do we do?" And they're asking me.
So you're in this ship that you're about to leave with this family with.
Mm-hmm.
Gonzalez is trying to get their other kid.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys come in running with weapons drawn, and they're basically like assaulting your craft, it appears.
They were on their way down.
Wow.
They had rounded the way, and they were on their way up the catwalk. And I said, is Gonzalez with them? And they said, he's nowhere to be seen. And I said, stand down, open the door. And they immediately started taking security steps to wipe all the intelligence information that would aid the enemy, I guess, out of the craft.
Wow.
So they did that very quickly. And the security team came, disarmed our security. And
Were they yelling at you, and like, did they put your hands behind your back and hurt you?
they escorted us in a very brisk, rough way, but they weren't, trying to break our arms or anything.
Okay.
They escorted us back past the security point, and as we went in, the ICC representative that had been with us before was in a yelling match with the facility leader. And the ICC representative outranked this facility leader by a lot. But this guy was ticked off.
The facility leader?
Facility leader was upset. And we were walked to this wall, and there were now doors where there were not doors before. And they opened the doors, and there's a detention facility. And we walk in, and there are people in there are all these people in cells. And these are cells they're almost like cages that you can put your hands in like this, with like octagonal kind of holes. And they walk us all the way back. All of them have people in them. And in the very back is a larger cell with Gonzalez and his two people, and with his two intuitive empath guards. And they put the rest of us in, including the crew of the craft. And Gonzalez said that the facility leader was a tyrant and couldn't handle being challenged in front of his own people, that things had gotten heated and out of control, and they were detained. And he said things sounded like they were going to go very, very badly. And
Meaning you guys were going to be held for a short while and then murdered?
it sounded like things were going to go in that manner.
Or tortured first and then murdered?
Who knows?
Yeah.
He didn't elaborate. We were in there for a short time, and the next thing we know, all these blue orbs started appearing in the cell through the walls. Gonzalez and I were the only guys who had traveled in this manner. The other people, the security and the crew, were kind of backing up a little bit. They were a little bit taken off guard. Gonzalez just told them to indicate that you're ready to travel. And the spheres, one by one, just appeared around us, and we zipped through the walls and appeared back in that room that I mentioned before, with the table slidden against the wall, the conference room. And an intrusion alarm went off because we weren't expected back in that way. Our craft got left behind. And Gonzalez sent the rest of the people to be debriefed, and told me, we lost a vessel, but at least we didn't lose any people. And he didn't know whether I was going to go see the Blue Avians after this or if I was going home, but that he needed to go. So I took off my boots, took off the jumpsuit, and put on my flip-flops, and the blue sphere came. I indicated I was ready, and I was brought home. And that's basically end of story. There's a much longer story on my website.
People online had asked if the family was able to have been taken with you.
No. We have no intelligence on what happened on that facility to that family, I've had zero information on what occurred.
Some of the attacking comments have been, why do the Blue Avians not care about these slaves? Why are they not saving these slaves? Isn't there going to be something in the future where they will be free?
This is a part of a much longer conversation. There is a plan to where when all these people are freed, they're going to be brought to another place to where they can be rehabilitated. And same thing for a lot of the Secret Space Program Alliance people. A lot of these people, like I said, are not angels. They're very damaged people. And they're going to be brought to one of our allies who are going to rehabilitate them before they're returned to society.
Well, thank you very much. You're very brave for going through this stuff and not giving up. And I thank you for watching. This is Cosmic Disclosure. I'm your host, David Wilcock. We have much more coming up for you, and we thank you for watching.